Hi, my name is Bryce Mckenzie, and I'm talking about the second movement of Paul Hindemith's Symphonic Metamorphosis. I have a couple notes over here because this is a very big piece. It's a very tense piece. It's a very intricate piece. So I can't remember exactly everything that goes down up here. So I've got some of it down on this paper that I'll be looking at periodically throughout here. So the piece starts out with this very soft gong note. It's super light. And then the flute comes in with this first melody, this bum 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 bum, and there's another gong note. Okay, and then it moves over to a clarinet or oboe sound. I'm not entirely sure which one it is. It moves over there, and there's these string trills in the back, and then it builds a little bit, and then there's this percussion ensemble, this doom 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 doom, and there's these little auxiliary sounds. There's this gong, there's this triangle, there's a wood block, and then there's a timpani sound that also is added in. But it's very grounded. It's not a very intricate part. It's not a very dense part, but it holds a lot of effect due to the the sounds that came before it, I guess. And then the percussion ensemble drops out, and you hear that first melody again that you heard at the very beginning that you're going to hear all throughout this piece, really, in the low reeds, and then strings are trilling in the back. They're going back and forth from these little half steps. They're very dissonant. Your ears don't really like it, but it's very intriguing. And the low reeds are playing that first melody, okay? And then next thing you know, it goes over to the high winds, and then it's still very intricate. It's very soft. It's very fragile. And then next thing you know, the horns take it, and it's a bit more powerful. It's a bit more strong. It's a bit more marching band like, in a sense. It's very structured. It's very on the beat. It's very it's a lot louder too. And then we're nearly 3 minutes into hearing this, and it's going from now the horns to the high brass to the low brass and the trombones, with the tubas adding these little accents in on like the twos and the ones. It's very interesting. And this is 3 minutes of just hearing really this one melody with these things going on in the background. And then there's a big giant ba da 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 that you hear. There's a bit of a break in it. It's very triumphant. It's a lot more grounded. The chords make a lot more sense in your ear, and then it falls out. It fades down into this little triplet run that the strings have. That's very exposed. That's very intricate. It's very focused on them, and it's very fragile. They have to be very focused and play very cleanly with each other. Otherwise, it loses its entire effect, which is drawing that audience in. It's really, you're pulled into listening to it because of what came right before it, that juxtaposition that you now have into this tiny little string moment that's a lot faster, it's a lot more intricate, it's a lot softer. So you're really like, it pulls you in because you were just blown away, and then now you have to really pay attention because of what came before. And then after those strings finish their sound, there's a new melody that comes in, and I believe the low reeds, I'm not 100% sure. It's this, and then this one takes a little bit of time to develop as well. And it goes between all the sections again, and then there's these other little kind of stabs, more like supporting notes that are also played along, and then there's a big sudden like fragile moment where it's very soft and it's just the high winds, and then super suddenly again, even more, there's this huge, and it starts to go upwards into this huge timpani solo that's very famous. Every timpanist ever has played it. It's very big, it's very grand, and then the brass is adding in these stabs on these upbeats and these downbeats that aren't really perfectly aligning with the solo, but they sound super cool in context. And then it goes down into a soft wind moment with that second melody. And then there is a very soft percussion ensemble that you hear in the back that goes up, and then everyone drops out. It's still this soft percussion ensemble that sounds almost the exact same as the one at the beginning. And then it eventually fades out, and then you go back to that very first melody, the bum 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 bum. You go back into that very first melody with very prominent counter melodies as well. There are multiple that are happening as that first melody bounces around the ensemble between every section. There are these counter melodies that each specific section has, so you can tell when a section drops out because you no longer hear that counter melody, and it's a very interesting experience for the ear and for the listener and the audience because of that. And then it goes into this very large percussion ensemble. They're playing these huge heights up there, and it's very big. It's a very enormous moment, and there's tiny little things going on. These little tweets going in the winds. There's little tiny tweets, and then there's small harp notes as well that you can hear. And that giant percussion ensemble fades out, and it gets very, very small and very small, very small, very small until it stops, and it just resolves on that one chord that finishes out the piece. And that's the second movement of Symphonic Metamorphosis by Paul Hindemith.